Why do many of us game? Because it's fun, entertaining, an escape, and maybe more. But with it being so fun, there are also a lot of gaming problems. The Electronic Entertainment Expo, known better as E3, is usually the biggest and most hyped up gaming event throughout the year. Starting out in 1995 and still going, it has been an event with a lot of exciting announcements being made, from the reveal of the Wii, Twilight Princess, and the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And apparently the Final Fantasy VII Remake again this year. It's really been 4 years, huh? To also not so great announcements, like the Sega Saturn coming out on the day it was announced right at E3, followed up by then great news of $299. And still more not so great announcements like the DRM heavy Xbox One and
$599 US.
Regardless of that though, the major announcements have been what have kept people always hyped for E3, but something is different these days. It doesn't have that flair it once did, and the excitement that it once provoked. For one, E3 has become a consistent place where it has a ton of bullshit reveals, and by that, I mean where any presentation announcement may start out hyped because they are showing some really amazing looking games, but then when released, it just doesn't look like what it did at E3. A classic example of this is the reveal of Killzone 2 on the PS3, which looked fantastic and literally said it was running in real time on the PS3, when in fact it wasn't at all. It was just some CG trailer. Current generation examples of these are Watch Dogs and most recently Anthem. Remember how this shit looked and hyped you up? Well, Ubisoft and EA said no. It was just a marketing ploy to get you into these amazing looking games before just giving you a lump of coal in the end. Though unlike Anthem, Watch Dogs did at least turn out to be an okay game. But it's not just the graphics too. Sometimes the gameplay looks far better in the presentations than it does upon release. Final Fantasy 15 with its kick-ass 2013 trailer that pretty much was left exclusive to that trailer, with how we never even got to play that part of the game. Or what about the big Lost Woods in the Twilight Princess 2004 trailer that never made it into the final game, that yet again became more cool Zelda content that disappeared for good. Looking at all that Zelda 64 stuff too, by the way, from way back. Problems like that are far too prevalent at this show. Hell, while on the subject of presentations, the presentations themselves are normally considered the main course for most people, as that's where most of the surprise announcements and games are shown. Unfortunately, too many times has this ball been dropped. E3 2003 Nintendo with their Pac-Man announcement as practically their only big announcement. Sony's biggest announcement being the $599 US for the PS3's price in 2006, and Microsoft with the Kinect Focus E3 in 2010. And of course, the ever so bad but hilariously freaking Wii Music announcement of Nintendo in 2008. In fact, that entire presentation was terrible. You had practically no core games shown, a terrible host, Shaun White, and freaking Ravi Drums, who is now simply known as the Wii Music drummer, with how badly that presentation went. In fact, the wider problem is having an entire conference and just announcing nothing but absolute trash and pointless antics, as was Nintendo E3 2008. Seriously, why were no core games announced at a freaking hardcore gaming event like this?
Where are the video games? Where my video? Oh.
Similarly, as mentioned prior, Microsoft practically did do the same thing in 2010. Not as embarrassingly or as remembered, but it was a complete clusterfuck void of many core games as well. They are literally overhyping games that people normally wouldn't even care about or be hyped up about in the first place. Recently, as such, EA did this last year with their punch to the gut Command & Conquer Mobile, you would think they are spending money to get a stage performance like this because they got a ton to show and hype people up for, but these are the results? Well, Sony hasn't done anything as bad as Microsoft or Nintendo here. Their last E3 in 2018 just kept dragging on and on. They got different stages that as such took its sweet time of half an hour to move people between the mid-presentation, mind you, just so we could hear proper announcements once they settle in their next stage. But that wasn't even enough. There was then a giant musical number that also ate up a ton of time. It wasn't even a case of bad announcements here, but so much wasted time when we could have had a presentation compressed severely and moved on to check out other E3 announcements in the meantime. Now, I'm not anti-musical presentation and an E3 presentation, as Nintendo performed an excellent orchestration at the opening of their E3 2006 presentation. But even then, that wasn't very long, and it was done in a way to show what the Wii can do with its motion controls. Hell, presentations have made these shows take that leap from being good to great. In my opinion, Nintendo E3 2004 is a great example and case study of the best balance of presentation and content. You had a fresh face of the meme president, Reggie Fils-Aimé, before he became president, come on stage to set the mood that Nintendo is not a child's console anymore, and then went on to show game after game announcement, including heavy hitters like the then exclusive Resident Evil 4, Metroid Prime 2, before going all in on the DS and all of its features. But to top off all that amazingness, it ended ambiguously into the Twilight Princess trailer that not only felt good to watch, but even better once you heard and feel the people's reactions as they cheered alongside them. Then it was topped off yet again with Miyamoto coming on stage with the Master Sword and Hylian Shield coming out to give his final words before the conference ended. Yet nowadays, Nintendo and now Sony have dropped these presentations at E3 for their own pre-recorded presentations online. Not sure if Sony will count theirs if they do an E3 one even, but considering Nintendo counts theirs, with this though, it did solve a lot of problems of no more fluff, just straight game announcements with a host manning it at that. Hopefully Sony will have someone manning it too if they do theirs. At the same time, however, losing presentations just sucks now. Gone are the days of fun audience-grabbing moments, whether good or bad. Gone are the days of cheers at people over a game. And gone are the two biggest companies of gaming from E3 presentations, leaving only Microsoft to present and therefore less reason to even care about pre-E3 presentations. I mean, I take this over those damn private screenings they have at E3, where developers lock the door on the cameras and present all these neat gameplay trailers and footage to the media where they can only talk about what they've seen in their blogs. Though enough cameras have gotten in and recorded some of it previously, but that's the thing to us at home who can't even make it to E3. Why is this even done? Is the game just not ready to be shown? Then don't show it at all and thus tease us at home about it. But alas, presentations aren't the only thing to E3. The whole show floor is the biggest part where people come in and play games and report on it. Unless you are the public who just bought a ticket to come in. Yeah, the public has become somewhat of a problem of E3, and while yes, it was usually a public event, E3 did have its doors closed for a few years to just journalists, and well, because of they didn't have to wait in those giant lines to just test out games and report on it, the reporting was amazing. We got tons of footage, proper reports on how the gameplay was, longer play sessions. It was fantastic. But E3, being as greedy as it was, didn't want to hide it under just 10,000 people, so now they are back to being around 70,000 again, and that has made the cluster worse. However, this raises another problem. Why are these games only locked to E3? I mean, sure, back then it would require a lot of money to bring these to stores just for people to try them out, but now in the age of downloadable content, a week or two after E3, these games should be tossed up on the respective release platforms for the public to try. Why is this old mentality being kept locked to E3 still a thing? it could be used, in fact, to further the hype to the public after such a massive event. In fact, in other news of the public getting screwed out of E3, the exclusive merch can sting. Okay, I'm not complaining about pins or something given out, but exclusive game content. I remember way back in the days of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire when I wanted to capture that other of Latias in my copy, but couldn't because it was in an alternate copy. They gave out these free Eon tickets at E3 to use on your e-reader in order to go to a special island in the game to get it. Yes, they did later on release this in Nintendo Power down the line, but for quite some time, it was exclusive to the attendees of E3. However, it only gets worse. At Disney's D23 conference, people got a power disc that unlocked King Mickey in Disney Infinity. I mean, I have no personal interest in that game, but for those that do, how do they get it? Is this literally locked in the game for good unless one hacks it at this point? There are also a lot of little problems as well, like how gaming sites love to cover those E3 related tournaments like Fortnite, Splatoon 2, Dota, League, etc. I mean, I guess it's good for those who care, but a lot of us don't care. We just want to see the new games, but that's more a gaming journalism problem, which I may cover in another episode. All in all, the overall problem of E3 is that it's just way too overhyped nowadays. People's expectations are blown out of proportion, and backlash is felt hard if the presenter doesn't give an 11 out of 10 performance in content, a demo isn't shown, or if a non-existent game that is rumored is never spoken about. So yes, the audience themselves can be a reason for E3's problem too. As such, E3 as a whole is usually just a stage, full of angst and anger, on the worst years that is, and mild joys but still mixed with anger on days when a company makes 2 or so mega announcements or presentations. As such, in an age where we can get news readily and download to play demos, is E3 even truly necessary? Sony and Nintendo already clearly have left the announcements level of things, which won't surprise me if Microsoft eventually bails too. Hype always seems a little smaller with Nintendo Directs nowadays as such, as opposed to the overhyped, overwhelming stage conferences. We sure never got a repeat of E3 2008 again. It could simply in the end become a floor to try out demos and networking opportunities for developers and other game companies. While I did say demos could be downloaded, such an event is still important from a business standpoint, so it can get media and journalist coverage all over the place before the public has a shot at testing it themselves. Hopefully, at least, that idea of letting people down the demo a few weeks later happens one day. But having games on the show floor isn't even possible at full capacity anymore, as Sony did take it a step further than Nintendo, doesn't even plan to have games on the show floor. Unless, of course, it's Sony's third-party developers who do it on their own, but otherwise, yeah, Sony themselves is not even doing that anymore. So I'm hoping maybe Sony can release some of these games at their State of Play show as demos as such. Seriously, Sony, do this! We will have one E3 without even being there that way. Regardless, while it is still the most hyped event still, I don't think it can reach the levels that it did over a decade ago, with all the changes that have happened since 2010. Hell, I'm nowadays more interested in TGS and Gamescom. So, who knows, maybe it will just become another major but not the most major event in the future. But for those of you who are interested still in E3, as I still am too, have yourselves a great E3! Hey everyone, thank you for watching The Obsessive Gamer. Gaming problems. So, this was some of our problems we had at E3, as I've seen it evolve over the years. So, like, subscribe, and also hit the bell icon so you guys could actually see my videos come up. So everyone, thank you for watching.